been a long time in the making. It's really interesting when you consider what kinds of clubs and organizations and opportunities that metropolitan students have in the District of Columbia. It's never an easy thing, to actually want to do a field of medicine or any sort of field, whether it's public health, epidemiology. It's always tough. Nothing is ever guaranteed when you have thousands of universities competing. But here at AMPC, one thing we want to do is make you guys, the founding class, stand out. And how do we do that? It's a great question. It's an approach. And it's not usually something that is usually even thought of, because why would pre-meds or pre-public health or whatever you want to call it really know what to do or how to do it or what's the way of actually succeeding or thriving? And it really has to do with a philosophy, a legacy. And that's you guys. So before I even continue, give yourself a hand clap. So I wanted to quickly just introduce myself and introduce my colleague. We both are avid pre-med students, as some of you may already know. But more than that, we're really close friends. We've engaged in multiple research opportunities together that have been really, really hard to find, which we despised as incoming pre-med students, and that's obviously one of our agendas when it comes to what we're trying to do as a club. But I would also argue that, we've helped really a lot of the community get used to searching for it, for having that philosophy, for really creating that continuum of effort that doesn't necessarily have to require any sort of unmindful or unnecessary decisions, because there's just so many different pathways that could actually occur. So here at AMPC, that's really what we're trying to do. And no matter what your field, you guys are the future innovators. You guys are the future thinkers. There are really a ton of undeserved populations out there that need your help, especially in DC. And while other organizations focus more internationally, and that is absolutely wonderful, we need to find an integration, a cohesion between them all. And that is what we hope that all of you can help us, and as you guys carry on, spread to all the pre-med community. So.
Hi guys, I'm Jane, and I'm currently a sophomore here. My major is a little bit different. It's in environmental studies, but I'm a public health minor. I'm also the secretary of AMPC, and I'm really excited to start this club with you guys. So even though my major is in environmental studies, I think it brings a new aspect to the club. I know we have a lot of public health majors and minors in here. Because I'm drawn to more of the human environmental aspect of it, I think we need to further the club by including interests that have to do with healthcare-based research, healthcare-based internships. A lot of the learning opportunities that will come from this club are going to be medicine-based, but keeping your options open is always a good thing. So I know the public health school, Milken, has a great reputation here at GW. So I just really want to bring some guidance to the club in that aspect. Another thing is, since I'm a sophomore, I haven't really solidified my career path either. So if there's undergraduates who don't really know where they're going, if they want to dabble in environmental studies or the public health arena, I'd love to chat with you guys and discover those opportunities together. Really excited to start this. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. As your treasurer, it's my biggest job to make sure that we have the funding to get you guys to do every opportunity out there when it comes to meeting doctors, getting opportunities to watch and shadow surgeries, And we offer this every month, and we try to get all these opportunities for you guys, and that's what really matters to us. And so just to talk about myself for a moment, I'm majoring in neuroscience, but in the future I'm planning on having a master's in public health, because one of my major desires after finishing my secondary education is to become a medical doctor, and become a medical doctor not only my medical doctor helping those in very poor nations such as Peru and Ecuador. And it's my goal ultimately to become a doctor, join Doctors Without Borders, and help those suffering most greatly. I'm really guided into this with this desire, because when I was much younger, I had the opportunity to go travel in China, and I visited the rural countryside, and I saw that many people don't live the way that people we see in Shanghai or Beijing live. They're suffering. They have very bad access to clean water. They're just barely surviving, getting the crops that they need to be sold to the cities at a very small price. And it's just that which drives me. And I want to use AMPC as an opportunity to help you guys to do similar things, whether that be in the States or abroad. Thank you very much.
I'm Emily. I'm a senior biomedical engineer, minoring in electrical engineering, and I chose to be a biomedical engineer after an internship here my junior year of high school. I was doing research in one of the labs, and a professor came to me, and we were talking about my career path. I was like, I really want to be pre-med, pre-health. I wasn't really sure. But he just said to me, like, if you're an engineer, like, you're going to be great at problem solving. And, like, that's exactly what doctors need to be. They need to be good at problem solving. They need to be good at approaching a patient, knowing exactly, like, not knowing exactly what's wrong with like, their symptoms and whatever, and being able to figure out what their symptoms are and be able to treat them. And so that's why I chose to be a biomedical engineer. And so just a little bit about me. I do cardiac research in one of the labs here at GW and SEH. I kind of chose cardiology after my younger brother, who has Down syndrome, had open heart surgery when he was 2 months old. It was really eye-opening for my family just because it was like a first big surgery in our family. And ever since then, I was super interested in the heart, got into cardiac research pretty early on in my undergraduate career. And so yeah, I'm so glad to be part of this club. I'm so glad to serve you as the social communications chair. And if you have any questions, or you have any concerns, just come to me. I'm always welcome to talk. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Anshul. I am a neuroscience major here at GW. I'm currently a sophomore and the student org representative at the American Medical Physiology Club. So I got into the pre-med track pretty early on in life. My dad was an anesthesiologist, and ever since I was a little kid, he would let me go to the hospital and see like look at a surgery from like outside the room, and that really got me intrigued into the field itself. And throughout my high school years, I was given the opportunity through my father to volunteer at an ambulatory surgery center. And having the opportunity to look at that really got me interested into the field in general, because of the intricacy and the intenseness being carried out very effortlessly and at a very fast rate. And that level of skill really intrigued me into the mindset of a pre-med student here at GW, and I feel that's what the American Medical Physiology Club here should offer to all the students who are interested in the pre-med or pre-health or any field in the sciences. So, yeah.
It's really good to see the energy in this room, and I can tell just by hearing the first few speakers in the club that you guys really do have a calling for medicine, and I see how you guys vision the whole puzzle and your role in it. So I think that's really great. I'm going to just advance the first slide. So what I chose to do, I'm a podiatrist. I do reconstructive surgery. I also have a huge interest in regenerative medicine. So you guys are probably now too young to have comic books with the sea monkeys ad on the back of the comic book. But when I was a kid, one of our first sort of forays into science projects was this idea of sea monkeys, that you'd pour this dust in water and suddenly these brine fish would would take root, and then of course there was all kinds of different extensions you could get for sea playgrounds. Next slide, please. So, why did I choose to speak about regenerative medicine as a podiatrist and not talk about bunion surgery? One of the reasons I did is because you're starting at a very ground level, and I think it's important to understand the cellular buildup of what you're going to be studying as you add the layers to tissue, organs, the human body, systems, vascular, orthopedic, infectious disease, derm, etc. We're very integrated in podiatry now with all these disciplines, and we refer to our colleagues, our dermatologic colleagues, our orthopedic colleagues, our neurology colleagues. And the foot is a very interesting organ in that it represents all 5 of these systems. So it's a very rare opportunity to use all your medicine skills to try to pick up a diagnosis and eventually treat and hopefully cure a disease. The reason that I in particular got into regenerative medicine is because I was looking for other pathways to accelerate the healing process with sports injuries and injuries that have been, for lack of a better word, you've gone through the traditional routes, whether it be a biomechanical route, you may have gone the routes of the traditional NSAID therapies, different types of splints, and now we are very much on the forefront, not just with sports injuries, but in really looking at how we can have replacement organ parts, how we can have stem cell therapies that are increasingly getting more sophisticated about blocking cancer, how we can look at neurologic processes like spina bifida, and how early introduction of regenerative therapies may be assisting there as well. So, regenerative medicine, this is from Dr. Scheffler Sang, who's a brilliant scientist down in and doctor down in South Florida. He says 3 things must occur. You must control unwanted inflammation, you must control scarring, and you want to call out progenitor cells to reprogram fibroblasts. So what we're trying to do with regenerative medicine in a nutshell is to take the herky-jerky process of cell repair that happens as we age and bring it back more to its form, thrust, or stem cell base. Next slide, please. Okay, I want to sort of take a sidetrack to what we look at when we look at scientific studies, because again, we're at the forefront now of regenerative medicine, but unfortunately, studies take time and money. And right now, there's such sort of interest in this that we, as we're gathering the studies, we are literally relying on our anecdotal experiences once we've confirmed that there is a good safety profile for some of these modalities. And I'm going to get into the different types, the main types of regenerative medicine in a minute. But suffice to say that the importance of, can we go back to that slide for 1 minute? Our outcomes are based on science as the numerator times our experience as physicians times F. F, this is something that is your surgical skill or your clinical acumen divided by the patient's expectation. And that's really your outcome. So the expectations of the patient in front of you are going to be important for determining the actual success of the outcome. Next slide, please. So what do mesenchymal stem cells do? What's popularized right now in regenerative medicine is stem cells, but there's a lot more to it than just stem cells. We have PRP, we have placenta-derived tissue. Now we have something else called exosomes, which are stem cell secretions in vesicles that have peptide and messenger RNA packets. But what mesenchymal stem cells do is they migrate to areas of need and they reduce inflammation because of their role in the immune response process. Stem cells happen to be one of the more expensive modes of regenerative therapy. One of the other ones, and this is a part of it, is placenta tissue. So why would you use placenta tissue? Well, we know placenta was used by the Greeks. They would actually eat the placenta in the hopes that would have some immunogenic and restorative properties with illness. They weren't far off. It's just that now we've refined the techniques to actually not only include placenta, but sometimes we'll do a slurry, which will include things like umbilical cord tissue. Umbilical cord tissue has the unique property of having heavy chain hyaluronic acid protraction 3, and this is one that helps to call out, it's a orchestration molecule that can call out cells that haven't committed yet, and then derive the tissue that we're trying to heal. Next slide. So this is an interesting slide that was done with placenta tissue, and that's the one that I study the most and that I think is the most accessible because it has the best value point. And I'm not going to kind of get into too much detail with that. This is more of an overview, but this just shows how the genius of some of the studies that have occurred. This was a rat or a mouse that was wounded, and there was both a normal skin sample and then an introduction of dihacum, which is the placenta tissue dehydrated. And what they found is a flow reaction of antibodies that reacted more to the wound that had the introduction of the dihacum over the placebo. Next slide. This was taken to another level with this parabiosis study, or what I call the Siamese mouse study. It was a very ingenious study. They took out the stem cells of one mouse. They joined 2 together at the flank, and then they did the same wounding process that I described before. What they found when they tagged the stem cells with fluorescence is that the stem cells migrated to the dihacum wounded mouse, showing that the dihacum, the growth factors in the placenta, actually attract the stem cells from one mouse across that membrane over to the other mouse. So it was a rather ingenious and convincing model that gave these scientists fuel to take it over to human studies and then eventually introduce it for things like wound healing, tendon injuries, etc. Let's jump ahead. We know that stem cells can be totipotent, that can specialize into any tissue. Next one. Pluripotent, that can differentiate into any tissue except placenta. And finally, multipotent, which only have 2 tissue types available. Next slide. I did want to go back to sort of the root of a little bit of what I do in more, traditional podiatry and anatomy. Frank Netter, and you'll, I'm sure, be introduced with the Human Atlas with Frank Netter and cardiac guides as well, is a brilliant anatomic illustrator, and he was very sharp in also keeping the physiologic aspects of the anatomy into how he did the layering monographs. So we've got the 4 layers of the foot. We can kind of rifle through them, and I'm not going to give you an anatomy lesson, but do we have the next one, or is this just one example? That's fine. So there's 4 layers, and he does overlays, and you'll get anatomy books where they have the see-through cellophane, and you can see the bones, and it's just a good way to study, and it's a good way to study with your colleagues to try to piece together and not look at it in a one-dimensional manner. So it's quite a good way to look at the anatomy. The best, of course, being in the lab. This is not actually a lab, but a surgery, and this is just showing where it applies. This is the fascia, which happens to be superficial to the intrinsic muscles of the foot. And the reason that this is important is you have to know where you are surgically to use this modified meniscus knife to go in and release the fascia when you've tried all other treatments that have failed. And this one, this was actually a failure of regenerative medicine that resulted in a release of the fascia to take the stress off the plantar fascia. That's something that we commonly call plantar fasciosis. We might also hear the term fasciitis, which is kind of an archaic term because it's more of a degenerative process than an actual inflammation. This was an autoadipose stem cell harvesting by a surgeon that wanted to inject his own stem cells. These stem cells can do wide ranges of activity. They can do things from anywhere from the help with macular degeneration to, as I already mentioned, spina bifida. And there's numerous studies going on. We need obviously more evidence. You are the future of potentially looking into, I'm sure some of you will be examining and hopefully using regenerative medicine and researching it. Let's go to the next slide. Exosomes are one of the latest hot things, which are the vesicles, and they have the advantage of having less immunogenic factors that would need to be reduced to introduce them back into the body, unlike some of the other things that we mentioned, cord blood, and et cetera. And they of course, have paracrine signaling. What happens with an exosome as it's secreted, the peptide around the vesicle invaginates, secreted, goes to the membrane of the target cell, introduces the peptide, and then it has an action. And so you can almost tailor what you're trying to do with this signaling. There's a lot of lay stuff out in science, and you have to make sure that whatever conclusion you hear, that you don't just knee-jerk and say, well, that's accurate. And look at a lot of lay people and how they correlate things. Let's just take an example with immunizations and different types of fears that they're going to get different types of diseases from an immunization, or that it's going to affect the baby in some way. You really have to take a hard look at the evidence. And of course, there's a lot of other things that time doesn't permit to get into, of fallacies in reviewing studies. But just make sure that when you're looking at science, real science is established through replication and convergence of findings. That replication is important, especially for the people of U2. We're now facing more environmental challenges, and that's going to be heaped on your generation. But you've been a wonderful, engaged audience, and I want to pass the baton on to the next speaker. And just remember, and I'm going to tell you a brief story about one thing that I started in high school. I went to a cardiology rounds. It was a special program they had for kids that were going on into medicine. And I went with a classmate of mine. We got dropped off by our mom, and we started listening about the shunts and the ventricles, and we both gave each other this look like, what the? And so we ended up leaving at the break because it was really beyond us. If you are passionate about what you're doing, you will find a road to doing what you want to do. You just have to stick with it. And so that's my call to you. Stick with your passion, and you will succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to see all of you here on a Sunday evening. I would like to focus my few minutes with you on some very specific issues, more in terms of how we can simplify the medical service cycle from the knowledge base to the economics of it to the affordability to the end user. For example, I live in Arlington County. I serve in a public commission on affordable housing, so I do a lot with poor people. I am an applied economist in the area of risk management. I worked at GW for about 10 years in financial reimbursement. I also worked with Children's Hospital and did some consulting work with Georgetown University when it was acquired by MedStar. I'd like to say that Arlington County is one of the top 10 wealthiest counties in America. Arlington County has a high level of income per household in the range of about $120,000 a year. However, we have pockets, zip codes within Arlington County, according to Census Bureau, where the life expectancy is 8 to 10 years below the average. This is Arlington County right here, okay? So there are pockets within zip codes in Arlington County where age range can vary from 88 to 63, for example, according to data available. So why is that? Well, for example, the 4 Mile Run area right there is one of those lower points. What does that mean? Well, a lot of people do not have proper insurance, and that's a special conversation for another day. People have insurance with high deductibles. They're not able to go for many services that routinely they should go. As a result, we have a huge number of people in Arlington County, which has a population of about 220,000 people, but easily, I would say a quarter of the population have insurance problems, okay? And this is the reimbursement part of the medical services. So instead of, as medical healthcare professionals, there are a number of ways to get funding to provide these medical services outside the conventional insurance programs. For example, I have a friend of mine, Mark Riley, who did something about it. He runs the Turkey Trot. He gives that money to a nonprofit organization in Arlington County. And he gives them $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to help cover those kinds of deficiencies. The affordability, the way to get paid for your professional services is there. But if you go to the proper so-called conventional channels, you're going to have difficulties. The way to do, for example, let me just say this. Arlington County has a sister cities program with other cities around the world. I went on one of those trips to Aachen, Germany. They also have sister cities with, I guess, Moscow and some other places. I don't know all of them. Most cities in America have a sister cities program with some overseas. And when you go, you stay with families over there, and you meet professionals in many areas, healthcare professionals, engineers, and so on, and policy people from the government in the local area where you go. Now, it is fairly simple. There's a lot of money. You can create a so-called cooperative, a medical co-op, nonprofit co-op. There is plenty of money in Arlington County, Fairfax County, and most counties in America. But what we have to create this so-called legal structure where people can come, healthcare professionals can come of different types, put a proposal together, and they will go based on the data you have available for those zip codes or regions. You can no longer be doing things at large. You have to work specific populations or in specific regions. It could be New York City, right there in Bronx. There are zip codes with high deficiencies in medical services. I'm saying Arlington County because I live in Arlington County. So, but this applies to just about anywhere. Biloxi, Mississippi, Cumming, Georgia, and so on. Okay? So it doesn't matter where you are in America, there's going to be pockets of deficiencies. And as a professional, you should pay attention, special attention, how you can creating a cooperative, a medical cooperative is very simple. And you can create one here in America is very easy. A lot of people help you out, including Arlington County is the home headquarters for Nestle, Amazon, and 10 other bigger companies. The whole metropolitan area is the same way. Now, why am I talking about the Sister Cities program? Because if you create a so-called cooperative here, nonprofit co-op, okay? If you create a cooperative here, you can also create a sister co-op overseas easily, okay? And the European Union has a lot of incentives for this kind of stuff. So, but in other words, I think creating medical cooperatives, Brazil has some of them. They have medical services and a wide range of services. I would say there are some in the United States, professional clinic in the co-op system, and they can be franchised as well, you see. It doesn't have to be in other words, you can be doctors in Silver Spring, Maryland, Arlington, Virginia, Springfield, all of them part of the same co-op, okay? And the so-called reimbursement payment, you can get those things done through special programs. Arlington County has funds for this. CMS, Medicare has funds for this. State Medicaid has funds for this. We need good proposals, okay? In other words, we already have these big insurance companies coming in. And remember, when you, for example, have problems of opioids, which we know is a crisis in the country, recognized by the medical profession as well as by the political class. They know that. But when you go, for example, you're some person, family in West Virginia, and you do the services and you apply, they say, oh, $5,000 go to your deductible, will not refund. Well, the individual cannot pay, and the provider does not get paid. The account goes to bad debt. You see what I'm saying? It becomes a problem. This is not the way to do it. Those kinds of places, situations recognized as crisis, they have special ways to handle automatically those payments. When you have floods in Houston, in Florida and some other place. Well, everything gets disrupted. Of course, nobody's going to get paid, So you need to create special programs with the county or state, especially the county where you live, for the so-called fast track processing of your so-called professional services. Otherwise, you'll be out there, you see, shooting, to the skies, and you won't get paid. Let me say this: I worked at GW, as I told you. About 10% of all medical services claims filed, here for the MFA, go to bad debt. I mean, they never got paid. They have to be written off as losses. Another 5% are denied by the insurance companies for incomplete processing, late filing, many reasons. So overall, right now, hear me. Also, same goes to children's. Let me say this: when Georgetown Hospital was being sold, I worked with the team that reviewed and did the audit of all their financial so-called reimbursement for medical services. $80 million, repeat, $80 million were lost due to administrative problems, That's a lot of money. I also work with Inova, and I can say this: Inova had an average for 5 years of $40 million in losses, not paid for the services. In other words, it is not just enough for you to be a good professional, you have to get paid. And so I encourage you to pay special attention and take a moment to learn how the reimbursement cycle works. What does that mean in summary? By the time a patient comes to a clinic and you provide the service, how the claim is sent to the payer. There are many ways that we can have another conversation about what kinds of payer you can go, and to make this affordable to the end user. For example, I had a surgery recently, and I am a member of Kaiser. Kaiser is a non-profit integrated organization. I did some extensive research on insurance last year, and it was, my copay was about $250. Very, very affordable. You see what I mean? Kaiser also offers, and I don't mean to be advertised for Kaiser, they have medical financial assistance for people below certain, financial threshold. But there are other groups in the United States, as I said, who work on a cooperative basis. You can join them, and so you don't have concerns about getting reimbursed for your medical services. But again, I would like to say that it is very important to look at census data. You have, as a professional in the healthcare area, you must be good in researching healthcare data. That's a skill that is like driving. You have to know automatically. There is no out of this. You have to be able to know how to access CDC information. Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, has so much stuff going on. They have partnerships of 80, 90 different kinds. You just have to sit there and say, I fit right here, For rural, low income, you name it. They have everything there, at least funding. So what I'm saying is find your niche that you're trying to work with and pay very close attention how you provide your service and how you get paid. That's my point here. We can talk about details in another occasion, how to set up a medical cooperative. There are many models around the country, but it is a low cost. It takes a few $100s, and you can easily get a sponsorship by the county where you are setting up this particular so-called nonprofit model. That's pretty much all I'd like to say this evening.
Okay, so can I have your attention for a couple of minutes? Let's say our co-president, Tony, is a very lazy person. Let's say he's a very lazy person. He doesn't like to exercise. And let's say he likes to eat a lot of trans fat, right? What's going to be the result of trans fat? Well, there's going to be cholesterol buildup, right? Yes, cholesterol buildup. So as a result of cholesterol buildup, let's say there is some sort of clog buildup in the subclavian artery, right? Can you see that, subclavian artery? One of those red veins. Okay, so let's say there's a clog. What's going to be the result? Well, that's going to cause a problem, right? What exactly is the problem? Well, let's dissect through the mechanisms. Well, we know that blood is a fluid, right? Blood is a fluid, and your capillaries, your veins, your arteries are pretty much the pipes your inner pipes of the fluid. So going back to physics for a second, let's say that a fluid operates on two systems. It depends on two systems. Let's say cross-sectional area of the pipe, which is the artery in this case, and let's say the actual velocity of the blood. What's going to happen to the cross-sectional area of that artery if there's going to be cholesterol buildup? Can someone tell me? Absolutely, it will be smaller, right? But physics says that any fluid must have a constant rate of flow, which means if area is going to increase, the velocity has to decrease in order to maintain that constant flow rate. So if my cross-sectional area, or if Tony's subclavian artery's cross-sectional area is going to decrease, what's going to happen to the velocity? It's going to increase, right? The blood is going to move much faster. So, but that creates a problem because there's also something called the Bernoulli's principle, where if the speed increases, then the pressure is going to decrease. Because if the blood is traveling faster, then the heart's going to say, you know what, you're traveling way fast. I don't need to really input any pressure from my system. But that's a problem because the heart doesn't know that there's actually a clog. There's physical friction caused by that cholesterol. So we call this process a transient attack, ischemic attack. And let's go through the whole process. So as a result of that clog building up, there's going to be less pressure to really propel that blood forward, which means there's going to be less blood flowing through towards the brain. So to really make that situation better, what the right subclavian artery does is it takes the blood and it pretty much propels it in an opposite direction, which means there's no blood going to the right hemisphere of the human brain, which is an absolute disaster. We call this process a transient ischemic attack, which means there's some parts of the brain that is able to function well, such as the Wernicke's area, but there's some parts that just cannot well, and as a result, our patient will probably have to be admitted to ICU very quickly. So why am I telling you this right now? Well, this is what AMPC is all about. What we try to do is whenever we look at medical cases, medical scenarios, we try to incorporate multiple disciplines. In this case, it was physics. We talked about Bernoulli's principle, we talked about Archimedes' principle, and we really understood that as a result of these underlying concepts, what ends up happening is the blood that's originally going up to the brain will flow back abnormally and create that pressure to make that blood go up. So this is what AMPC is all about in terms of really dissecting the mechanisms of physiological diseases, and I expect you guys to be able to do this at the end of the year, and we'll help you guys. So we're here to help you guys conduct multiple different experiments. There are research opportunities. We're here to help you guys prepare for the MCATs, GREs, or anywhere you guys are going in terms of healthcare professions or resume writing. We already know there's career services, but as I said earlier, that's not enough for our growing pre-med community. If you guys are interested in public health, we have Jane who can help you with that. Yeah, next slide, please. Next slide. Oh. Okay, yeah. So these are different medical career tracks. So obviously, a lot of students are interested in the MD-DO. So as you can see, there's allopathic medicine and there's DO, osteopathic medicine. So that's a big difference in terms of what they require. The MCAT obviously requires an MCAT score of at least 510 or above. Some schools, they're called like easy medical schools, and they require around 505, 506, but we don't really want to be relying on easy medical schools. To be on the safer zone, let's try to hit that 510 range. And for DO, it's a little bit less rigorous. The required MCAT score is around 500. So yeah, it's a general pre-med curriculum that's really required. 2 semesters of organic chemistry, 2 semesters of general chemistry. I think you guys are pretty well known about that. But after you take that MCAT and your GPA set, you have 2 options in terms of where you guys want to go. And there's the DO path and there's the MD path. So you can just go for the schools that just offer strictly the degree, MD or DO. But I recommend you guys, try to apply to the dual degree program. We have multiple of those in GW. We have the MD MPH degree and MD MBA. I wish we had the MD PhD degree in GW. That would have been fantastic, but hopefully they would incorporate that in the future years. We also have DO PhD, DO MPH, and DO MBA. So I think, when you spend your 4 years in medical school, getting this dual degree is a great way to enhance your chances to, do something with medicine rather than just, going into the hospital and conducting the surgery. I think these dual degree offers you more chances to really enhance your passion for medicine and really take that into a different level. Option number 3 is Canadian medical schools. If you guys want to go to Canada, that's a great option. There are a lot of great medical schools in Canada. But you have to know that the only MCAT section that they consider is the CARS, which is everyone's nightmare. Which it was certainly my nightmare when I started studying for the MCAT. But if you guys want to go to medical schools in Canada, you have to make sure that your MCAT CARS, the critical reading section or the verbal reasoning section, is very strong, because a lot of these medical schools look for a score of 127 or above. And your final option, let's say, is Caribbean Medical School. That's your last chance, really. But the problem is the matching rate is only 30 to 35%, and there's very few spots open for surgeries and anesthesiology and all these other great upper level residential programs. So that's a MD deal. If you guys need any help in terms of knowing where your career path might lie, just give us an email. We'll contact you guys, and we'll help you guys pretty much craft your application in the most amazing manner. So we have veterinary medicine that requires a GRE of 150 or above, which is around 80th percentile. The average GPA should be about 3.5 plus. Not that rigorous, but it's very doable. And pretty much you need to follow a pre-med track to be in this program, but there's supplemental course requirements, and some of them are general ecology, 3 to 6 credits, of fine art, and you also need to make sure you are taking animal nutrition, zoology. But here's the fun part: you don't have to take biochemistry. That's not a requirement for this path, and that goes same for podiatric medicine and dentistry. So you can see there's every branch there's separate requirements. It's just like minimal changes. It's not really different from each other, but you can see like the rigor is definitely different. I mean, MD definitely has it's hard to get into MD program rather than, let's say, podiatric medicine, but those are different career tracks that you can embrace. Yes, we also have optometry. Does anyone know what optometry is? Yes, it's about the eye, yes. So again, same pre-med track, but there's general requirements, at least one academic year of zoology or biology, college math. So it's pretty much just like the pre-med track. It's preferred that you guys take general psychology if you're going into optometry, microbiology. Actually, if you guys start preparing for the MCAT, there's a separate section just for the eye, so that explains why psychology is there. GPA 3.4 or above. Again, not very rigorous. It's very doable. So the maximum score for the optometry admission test is a 400. So yeah, those are the percentiles right there. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about some summer programs that are available for you guys as students. So are any of you neuroscience majors? Yes, we have a lot. So it's definitely a growing major. This major was introduced in fall 2018. So yeah, from that point, we have a big growing number of neuroscience majors. Actually, Anshul Muger, our student representative, was a molecular bio major. He switched to neuroscience major, so it's a very popular major. So if you guys are interested in neuroscience, there is a cognitive neuroscience of consciousness program offered every year by the GW Neuroscience Department. And if this is something that really interests you, you can definitely contact us and contact Dr. Kravitz. So this is pretty much a 2-month program where you just pretty much, as it says, you explore the concept of anesthesia, what's really happening in terms of hypnotism, schizophrenia. The cool part is this program gives you 10 credits towards your neuroscience degree, which means you can definitely graduate faster if this is something that you want to do. And the deadline for this program is sometime in March. We'll make sure to remind you guys about this program if you guys are interested. Finally, we have the GW School of Medicine Summer Research Internship. Now, a lot of students don't know about this program. It's definitely an amazing program if you want to go into the medical field, because this is you guys are both doing clinical research and wet lab research, clinical and wet lab research. So the application for this is coming up very soon. It opens on November 8th, but it closes January 22, 2019. Sorry, that should say 2020. So pretty much when you apply to this program, you'll be broken down into groups, and you'll be signed with a doctor who's pretty much conducting the clinical research with patients. And one of the studies that's going on this year is it includes ultrasound with venous thromboembolism. Do you know what that is? Venous thromboembolism? Yeah, exactly. I saw you. Yeah, it's with the foot. So pretty much what this is your veins on your legs are pretty much prone towards blood clotting, right? Because we don't really have that system to propel the blood towards the heart when it goes back up. So the only way to pretty much prevent the venous thromboembolism, wow, that's a hard word, is to pretty much make sure that you are, having muscular contractions, generating enough pressure through the muscles. So that's one of the studies that's been conducted by the GW Medical School, and it's a really cool research. If you guys are interested, it's a great way to bolster your medical school applications, especially if you guys are interested in MD programs. So the deadline for this is January 22nd. You guys have, so yeah, it's coming up next semester, but it opens around November 8th. So please let me know if you guys are interested. We can get started on that application. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about the guidelines to be an active member in this club. So we have a lot of members, and we're very fortunate about that. But there's some guidelines that we have to make sure you guys really understand. So we operate in a 3-point system, which is a semester-based, which means you have to attend at least 3 events or at least 3 general body meetings per semester. We'll have around 5 to 6 meetings every semester, but if you just attend 3, you guys are fine. And you also have to participate in one of the 3 events per semester. Obviously, there's a surgery dome observation happening every month. There's also fundraising events, medical mobile clinics, so you just have to attend one of those events every semester. You guys will be fine. So yeah, let's talk about the e-board position. There's one e-board position that's open right now, and it's the social communication chair, number 2. So we'll send out an application soon about this. If you guys are interested, please email us, and we'll definitely put you on the list. So this will be a very competitive application because we have so many members. If you guys certainly want to do this, it's a great way to be an active member of this club, and we'll send out the application. Yes, go on.
Any criteria?
Yes, well, the criteria, there isn't really a strict criteria. I mean, you just have to have passion for human physiology, but we're looking for a different perspective. I mean, we already have neuroscience majors, we have BMEs, someone with an open mind, someone that's very strong in terms of communicating, public speaking, because this job is going to require a lot of public speaking. So someone who isn't really shy, it's basic guidelines, but that'll be more clear when we send out the guidelines. Okay, I'll let my co-president speak. Go on.
So I would like to start off by talking a little bit of our history, of our origins. So this is a club that Bibas and I spent a very tedious time to make. It was a random night. We were just thinking, hey, Bibas, where's a pre-health community in this university? Where's a community where pre-health students could just talk, just really get to know each other and help advance each other, help give ideas for research opportunities, for any sort of opportunities that really have a huge impact in creating your own agendas. See, that's the one thing I like to emphasize. Every single one of us comes from a different hometown, from a different family, from a different demographic. I'm Egyptian, native born, first generation. When I first came to this country, I didn't necessarily speak English that well, and it was a long process, and I developed it. And I'll tell you this: it's always really a fun. I don't want to say fun. It's really a commending aspect to try to thrive in these conditions, because as a first generation, you don't really get blessed the way others do. But that's a little bit of my story, one bit of a whole puzzle. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a mission and a way of coming to this university. And what we wish to do is find ways for us to connect and to spread these ideas, to spread these opportunities so that you guys could find those that actually help benefit yourselves. So one way we thought of doing this when we first established it is, obviously, we need a local chapter to support us, to really enhance our mission. And there's a lot of them out there. I mean, we didn't want to go necessarily too academic, such as the AAMC. We did apply, got rejected. That's actually, if anyone doesn't know, the organization that sponsors the MCAT. And we also tried other really intriguing local chapters, such as APSA. Now, that's actually the one that's on the screen. It worked out. And also others such as LAMC, American Podiatric Medicine Society, American Journal of Academic Health. There are a bunch of different kinds of local chapters you could really try to
hit for, and this is actually the one that gave us the okay, the green signal, with of course hard work. But what actually is APSA? And this is actually it's really more so a consortium of physicians that are international and national that possess typically an MD PhD, but not necessarily. You have a lot of members of the local chapter that are composed of just general MDs that are in surgery or in any sort of primary care. And what they're trying to do is advance research and really find ways to incorporate research into student academia. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. Find unique ways to actually find methods that students can just explore, just know what it is that they want to do, why they do it, and how to do it. The third one is really the tough one that we feel, I could definitely, just looking at Beavis, I could tell we didn't feel like we had when we first came to GW. And that's what we're really trying to change. So that's exactly what's, written over here. Interesting, we only have one headquarter nationally. That's in Chicago, Illinois. So it's not necessarily the biggest local chapter that we could have gone, but they seem very supportive. They might send out an institutional representative to come by and possibly give us a talk about what it is that they do. And even more interestingly, so this is for you guys, they had this really cool opportunity, I've tried it, where you can actually connect with any sort of MD or DO or MD PhD or any doctor as a matter in terms of getting feedback and mentorship. And it's probably the coolest feature that they do have. It's really easy to sign up for. The only thing to do is that in order to do that, you would have to be a member of the local chapter. The fee is a one-time $25 thing, but it's really beneficial to your overall progress as students. So I recommend everyone who's in this club to do it at some point. Of course, there's no rush. But once you're actually in, it will be really straightforward. You could actually schedule literally any discipline. Again, that is any discipline of any type of physician to actually reach out to you. And they're really welcoming. I personally contacted a nephrologist, and he told me a lot about not only his path to why he wanted to do nephrology, but also what kinds of hurdles were along the way, what were the obstacles that kind of made him possibly consider other sorts of options. But in the end, he ended up choosing it, and it had to do with his experiences in the end, his family history. It just made him want to do nephrology. And I think really getting that sort of insight's just usually tough as a pre-med. It's quite tough, I would argue, to just talk to doctors in general unless they're part of your family. So that's one thing that we definitely do want to change as a organization at GW. Next slide. Thank you. So there are really two layers that really make up this body. There's the layer of individualism, I like to say, where all of you just gotta do it, straight up, just like the Nike slogan, just do it. You're home, you gotta work, you gotta study, you've had these sorts of criteria or schemas of how you have to work and just perceive work in general, and they're habits. We are not trying to necessarily focus on the habits, although it is included. We're trying to focus more on the how. And the how is a part of the legacy. And we are trying to be the legacy as the founding class. So that really has to do more with the personal work, which I have listed a little bit down there. We have lots of different ways that we can make ourselves unique as people in public health, in pre-med, in pre-dentistry, or whatever kind of field that you're talking about. And that's really what's below. Before I get there, just so I don't forget, one thing I did want to remind all the students here is to remember there is an HPAC process. And I don't know if you guys know what that is. I'll give a quick rundown. By the third year, I didn't know this when I was a freshman. It's good that I'm trying to tell you guys this so you can learn. There's actually an interview that you would have to do in front of advisory committee. And it's part of our CCAS, undergraduate advisors, and also they're usually very friendly. They give you honest critiques, and it also is composed of other physicians in the area that just want to support DC. And how it works is you actually have to go through an application process, write a bunch of essays, and then eventually you get scheduled for an interview. This is probably one of the most important points that a lot of juniors struggle with. And I myself struggled a little bit with it because I didn't really seek as many career opportunities. I didn't even know about it, but anyways, I did it. It helped. And one thing I just wanted to remind all of you guys is that you have so many opportunities to just work on that part. But that's really more of your own self-diligence, your own self-work. I don't really want to go into that. I just want to remind you guys. Also, in terms of resumes, Beavis kind of mentioned it, I'll just mention it again, VMOC. VMOC is an excellent resource for all of you to use. It allows you to submit any resume that you compose 10 times, and it gives you a really accurate score that a lot of employers, so any sort of internship opportunities or research opportunity directives, could actually computerize and actually see what score you're receiving. So it's really important that you guys obviously try to use that, because the higher the score, typically the better. Of course, as long as you get above like a 70, it's usually pretty good. You don't have to necessarily get like a 99. That's ridiculous. I don't know anyone who did. So that's one thing. And also keep in mind that it's actually a really good habit to always work on your CVs. Of course, it's important to know what a CV is. Everyone here know what a CV is? Okay, good. I'm getting a lot of heads. That's good. So it's just like a really extended, more elaborate form of your resume. But you know, instead of going as much into, direct catchphrase, flashlight experiences, you're really giving the whole perspective. You're giving a lot more experiences that embody each category. And while medical school does not directly require the CV, what I noticed is a lot of pre-med opportunities, that includes a lot of these research professors in the medical school, also at SEH, and also a lot of the professors that, hire students in general, or employers that hire students usually are interested in seeing a CV. And I've heard countless times that having one does indeed increase your chances of getting accepted, or at least an interview. So, that's not really as immediate as the resume, because of course you guys are trying to hit so many different layers between the volunteering, the research, everything can make you unique. It's really an algorithm. You guys form an algorithm in a way. That's actually how they see us initially, but actually it's way more complex than can be computed, because it's all up to you guys. You guys make your own history, and every single one of you is unique. Beavis and I tried, even though we did similar opportunities, we still have so many different things that will obviously make any committee advisor, when they review our application, to realize he's different than I am, or I'm different than he is, because that's just what being human is. It's not just showing them that you're really intelligent or anything of the sorts. It's really setting yourself aside and really trying to, foreshadow some sort of personality to them. And I think that's what really takes them a long way. Go to the next one. Thank you. So, I have a gift for all of you. Maybe mark it in your, because that's what we do. We try to offer opportunities. The first gift, which you guys could definitely consider, and I think it's a great way to help create this agenda, this personality that you all are trying to really establish, is work at the American Red Cross. And there are so many opportunities, and trust me, the application process for this is nowhere nearly as tedious as NIH or whatnot. They do a really basic screening, and they let you work. They let you take internships. I know a really famous colleague of mine who's in his senior year. He just applied for an internship last year with the American Red Cross at national headquarters, got accepted. He's working there 5 days a week for just 3 hours. He's a domestic policy guy, so he doesn't really have as much work as us, but they have a lot of internships. There's also the opportunities to become a blood donor ambassador, which that's something I personally did. And pretty much what that is they have a bunch of centers in the vicinity of the metropolitan area, and you can actually opt to just be a receptionist and engage with patients and ask them to sign in, be really greeting, inform the doctors what kinds of procedures they're doing, stuff like that. I really like that kind of work. I think it's really good in terms of showing leadership and team experiences. That's obviously a layer that we're trying to hit as a club. So that's also the other thing. And the last thing, how many here know their blood type? Raise your hand. Wow, that's a lot more than I expected. That's actually almost 80%. Interestingly, I've donated blood, but I don't know what happened. One of the workers there was too lazy to send me my report back. I never got my blood type back, and I don't know what my blood type is. I could be a universal donor, acceptor, I have no idea. That's actually really good. That's awesome. One of the benefits in case you donate for your first time is they automatically should send you a notification with what your blood type is, which is really cool. But aside from that, they also give you volunteer hours for doing that. I also happen to be the blood drive coordinator at the GW Red Cross. So we actually have a chapter organization, and I think there's a general body meeting for that coming up pretty soon. I definitely encourage that to be a club to consider. It looks great on a pre-med resume, and they love to have you. Very, very friendly e-board, just like us. You're always free to ask us any questions, and we'd love to help serve the community in a different way, as you guys know, because this is a little bit different. American Red Cross focuses more on overall blood donations and whatnot. So that's our first one. There's really so many different kinds of opportunities within it, but I want to present that as one thing, as a really good source to serve as the community experience. And trust me, there's literally a portion of HPAC that asks, what community experience did you have within DC? This is a great way to suffice it, at least in my case. There are other ways, but there is a difference between community and clinical. It's really important to get this discernment between them. And it's a lenient way to do it. So that's the first one. Second opportunity, anyone interested in art, drawing? I see you, Natalia, with the nod. Thank you. The one behind her. Okay. Keep the hands high. I'm trying to get like a mini head count. So there's another interesting think tank. Nice. Thank you guys so much. Okay, that's actually like nice. Yeah, that's about 20% of the entire group body, meaning the entire population we have today. That's really fascinating to me, because as medicine progresses, one of the new specialties that's coming about is art therapy. And as you guys know, there is also, or as you may know, there's a really growing community of children that have illnesses in the District of Columbia. These are not just chronic, these could also be mental. There's a lot of refugees. There's actually a community of refugees just right outside of DC, and they actually benefit tremendously from art, from just appreciating nature on a canvas. And this is an excellent opportunity. It's an initiative. It's run by Katie's art project. She actually emailed me directly, and I just thought, you know what? It's another amazing community experience. It's being run in DC. I think she's also a GW student. So I will probably share some of these slides with the group later, and definitely it's something really impactful that could help a lot of these children who have PTSD and whatnot. And it's just an amazing thing to talk to others about, that we can actually help the community with our knowledge of medicine at even an adolescent stage. So it goes a little bit more in psychology, which is beautiful, I would argue. So that's our second opportunity. Then third. So this one is actually being spearheaded by our treasurer, Mr. Adam Snyder. He's over there drinking some coffee, lucky guy. We have an interesting opportunity occurring at Arlington, VA, which is where Dr. Francis Souza lives. That's actually where I live too. I don't live on campus. And it's run by a priest, I should say, by a church called SDSA, where they have a lot of doctors starting up an initiative called Hope Multiplied, where they're really trying to extend the hope in the community and really serve the homeless, undeserved, and more specifically, individuals who don't have access to any health care whatsoever. We're talking about people who don't even have passports, people who don't even have health insurance to that degree. And trust me, they exist. I've seen them. I'm sure you have too. And what they're trying to do is really a whole cascade of events, such as Love Your City, which is a monthly event. That's actually a really cool one. Every month you have not only the priest, but a whole community of doctors and other students meeting up together to just feed homeless people. They get a lot of, catering stuff that's paid for, and it's really just a chance for homeless individuals to actually discuss with the members and really collaborate in order to figure out where they're going to be sleeping that night, how are they going to get themselves checked out. And to add on to it, some of these doctors actually, this is pretty cool, and if you guys see it, it would be phenomenal. Great thing to talk about in an interview, I swear. I saw it once and it blew my mind. I was there for about an hour volunteering. They actually have a van that they purchased, and in this van there's like 3 or 4 doctors, and what they do is they circulate around the metropolitan area. So it's actually like a mobile health clinic, and they have medications, they have all these syringes or topical solutions that could be applied in the skin, everything that could actually treat a patient. And besides that, they also do a lot of diagnosis. So it's not just that, it's preventative care, but it's also direct application without any cost associated to these members. So as you guys can imagine, it is a little bit pricey, but for them. But in the same time, they really benefit from volunteers, and it's another amazing way to see how medicine occurs in a different demographic. Because as we perceive it, medicine always occurs in a hospital, in a closed setting. But that's actually not always the case. Most of the time, it's out there in the street, and we don't even see it. We don't even get to witness it. We're all so busy. We're GW students. So this is a really fascinating way to really observe that layer. And if you guys have any questions about it, I will definitely advertise it again. It is a beautiful and I would really say a memorable experience or opportunity that could really change your lives in terms of how you view the world overall. So thank you for that. Next one. I have the next one. Now I will actually, so that's my bit. I will actually welcome Emily, because we do have a BME. Everyone, BME, raise your hands. I want to see the head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's about 15, 20. Nice. All right. Yeah, that's almost a fifth of our population. So we actually have Emily here. She is a BME. Of course, that's a huge part of medicine, prosthetics. Of course, other parts, biotechnology helps us so much in actually advancing the career. So we'd like her to actually step on stage. Everyone give her a round of applause, please.
Hey guys, sorry my slides are a little bit sparse. Didn't have a lot of time to prepare them, but I'm glad there's a handful of BMEs here. I love BME. I told you before how I kind of got started through research and was just interested in the topic, and I think it's really helped my problem solving skills grow. I guess like if you're a BME and you're also thinking, oh, should I do pre-med, will it be too much? I would say go for it. The BME, the biomedical engineering department, does a really good job of helping you integrate the pre-med courses as well as your engineering courses in like your first couple of semesters. So for me, I went to my advisor and I was like, I don't know if I can do both. And they gave me a course schedule where they literally laid out every single course I needed to take, what semester I needed to take it. So I ended up it is very vigorous. I will not lie about that. But so is the BME curriculum. I know second semester, freshman year, you're taking physics, biology, chemistry, multivariable calculus. You're taking all of those in one semester. It is really difficult, but I know you all are hard workers, you're driven, and you guys can definitely do that. In terms of like integrating like the biomedical curriculum with like pre-med, if you've already taken, if you're taking bio and chemistry, and you've also had some AP credits coming into the school, you can substitute, say, taking a psychology class, like if you've already taken AP Psych, and then take an upper level biology course, like genetics or something like that, or anything you're interested in biology. And in terms of the curriculum for BMEs, we normally specialize our junior year, so freshman and sophomore year we're basically taking all the same courses, basic courses, but then we specialize in either electrical or mechanical. So with electrical, we focus more on building circuits. I actually went the electrical track, so we learn about the circuitry behind different medical devices, which is really cool because this is information that you can actually integrate into building different devices building different devices that doctors actually use. The other side would be the mechanical track, and that would be more like learning the physics behind prosthetics and things like that. And so all of these are integrated into the medical field. So regardless of if you're biomedical engineering or not, you're still going in this club. You're still going to get a taste of how you can integrate the biomedical component into real-world applications in the medical field. So yeah, if you have any questions about engineering, biomedical, stuff like that, just ask me. Thanks.
One question.
Sure.
Any special relationship with the Veterans Administration, VA?
The Veterans Administration?
Any special, internships, programs, partnerships, funding, anything?
So that's a great question. So actually, the engineering school, we have a new club that is George Hacks, and it's a medical hackathon where we have like 24 hours to build a device, and we get different pitches. And so a lot of the pitches come from the VA. This past year, I participated in it, and we worked with a woman who had a prosthetic leg who needed to bring it around with her on her handy cycle, and we worked with her to build a device that was able to fulfill her needs. And also, as a senior in capstone design, there are a couple different projects, but there are some that work with a man who also has a prosthetic leg, and he goes hiking, and he wants a prosthetic leg that fits different sizes and can walk through different types of terrain. For my capstone project, I'm working with doctors in the radiology department at GW to build an MRI simulator, which is really cool. And so just being a biomedical engineer, we're able to really integrate our skills of either building circuits or building prosthetics into actually helping out doctors and having real-world applications for that. Thank you.